Cognitive and Language Development Stages of Adolescent and Child Development by Jean Piaget. Presented by Jessica Green. Jean Piaget was born on August 9, 1896 in Neuchâtel, Switzerland, and died on September 16, 1980, at the age of 84. He attended the University of Neuchâtel and also briefly studied at the University of Zurich. In 1923, he married Valentine Châtenay. He and his wife had 3 children who Piaget studied from birth. Piaget moved to Paris, France after graduation and taught at the Grand Jabel School for Boys. At that time, the school was run by a man by the name of Alfred Binet. Binet developed the Binet Intelligence Test, which was later remodified in 1916 to the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scales. This assessment classifies IQ ranges into the following categories: very gifted, highly advanced, gifted or very advanced, superior, high average, average, low average, borderline impaired or delayed, mildly impaired or delayed, and moderately impaired or delayed. Piaget would assist in marking these assessments and began to become fascinated by the manner in which younger students incorrectly answered a question consistently. He noted that these responses differed from older adolescents and hypothesized that children's cognitive processes differ from adults. From 1925 to 1929, Piaget was a professor of psychology, sociology, and the philosophy of science at the University of Neuchâtel. Piaget also acted as the director of the International Bureau of Education from 1929 to 1968. While teaching at the University of Geneva, Jean Piaget was asked to serve as the chief consultant for conferences in March of 1964 at Cornell University and the University of California, Berkeley. In 1979, he was awarded the Balzan Prize for Social and Political Sciences. Before we begin to describe Piaget's cognitive language development model in detail, there are a few things I would like to point out. First, this model is specifically designed to address the development of children and adolescents, not all learners. Second, this model focuses on development, not learning. Learning content and learning behaviors is not addressed in this model. Finally, stages of development are designated using qualitative and quantitative differences. Children transition from one stage to another through assimilation, where a child responds to a new event based off prior knowledge, such as infants know that who their mother is. Their mother is a female, so they might call every new female they meet mom. Accommodation is when a child develops new knowledge or adapts prior knowledge. This is the stage where a child is able to distinguish between a mother, a sister, a grandmother, an aunt, or a friend. And finally, equilibration. Equilibration is the balance between assimilation and accommodation, what we know versus what we want to learn. Take a few moments to read through this brief overview of Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development. We will go through each in more in depth in the following slides. Sensory motor. The sensory motor stage of cognitive development generally lasts from birth to age 2. The sensory motor stage is divided into 6 distinct substages. The first of these is simple reflexes. This lasts from birth to about 1 month old. During this stage, infants learn through trial and error and initially rely on reflexes. The second substage is first habits or reflexes and primary circular reactions. That's reproducing an event that initially occurred by chance. This typically lasts from ages 1 to 4 months. Here, infants attempt to recreate activities that may have been accidental that produce specific sensations. The third substage is secondary circular reactions and lasts from ages 4 to 8 months. This is where infants become more aware of their surroundings, such as continuing to touch something they found was soft because they enjoy the feeling. Our fourth substage is coordination of secondary circular reactions. This lasts from ages 8 to 12 months. Developments in this substage include hand-eye coordination, cause and effect, object permanence, and movement towards goal-oriented actions. The fifth substage is tertiary circular reactions, novelty, and curiosity. This lasts from ages 12 to 18 months. During this time, infants begin to experiment with new behavior. The final substage is internalization of schemas, ages 18 to 24 months. Infants develop means to utilize symbols during this stage. The development of individualistic insight makes the movement to the following stage. The pre-operational stage is the second stage of Piaget's cognitive development model. This is for toddlers ages 2 to 7. It was noted that in this stage, children are still unable to understand concrete logic and cannot mentally manipulate information. Children increase role play and imagination-oriented games during this stage, but still operate under an egocentric view, meaning toddlers in this age are unable to understand other person's point of views. That's why we get 4-year-olds who want to continuously watch Sesame Street because they love Sesame Street. They're not able to understand that even though they love Sesame Street, mommy, daddy, and everybody else might not. The intuitive thought stage develops when children begin to ask the quote-unquote big questions, how and why things happen in the way they are. Children in this stage are unaware of the properties of conservation and focus on centration or single-mindedness. An example of this would be if you were to show a toddler in this stage 2 of the same identical cups of water with the same amount of water in them and ask if they had the same amount of water, they might tell you yes. They can see that they're the same cup and they're at the same level. But if I were to then take one of those cups and pour the water into a tall and thin glass where the water level would be higher, that infant might tell me that the tall thin glass has more water just because the water level is higher. They're not able to reason that the water is still the same volume. They can only focus on the level at once. Children are also unable during this stage to reverse a sequence of events. This is called irreversibility. As a caveat to centration, children at this stage of development struggle with classification and grouping. The concrete operational stage is the third stage in our model and involves children ages 7 to 11 years old, or our pre-adolescent years. This stage is characterized by appropriate use of logic, where thought processes become more quote-unquote adult-like. Children are able to use inductive and deductive reasoning skills. And another marker of this stage in cognitive development is the elimination of egocentrism. These children are able to adopt and understand the viewpoints apart from their own. Children in this stage can only solve concrete problems. They are unable to think abstractly about a situation. The final stage in Piaget's cognitive development model is the formal operational stage. This stage starts at age 11 and goes to ages 15 to 20. Intelligence is now shown through logical use of symbols related to abstract concepts. Abstract thought emerges during this stage. Metacognition develops, so adolescents are able to think critically and reflect on their own thought process. Problem-solving skills are refined and developed here. They develop the capacity for higher-order thinking, and they begin to be able to combine and classify items. A few criticisms of Jean Piaget's development model are that he underestimated children's abilities. By saying there are only certain tasks that an infant can attain during sensory motor, and they have to do certain things until they move into pre-operational, it very much limited what we expected out of children according to this model. Other scientists thought that cognitive development is a continual process. You don't move concretely from one stage to the following. What you would in fact do is move fluidly from pre-operational to concrete operational. This way, you might still have some of the abilities during pre-operational and still be able to accomplish the tasks from concrete operational. One of the largest criticisms for Jean Piaget's work was that he disregarded the importance of society and culture on a child and their development. Some European scientists thought that Jean Piaget's developmental process was maybe specifically geared towards Western civilization children, and that these were Americanized developments. I believe Jean Piaget's cognitive development model had some positive effects on education today. It enabled us to have an understanding of realistic cognitive expectations for children in each stage of learning. We know that children who are in pre-operational stage can't think abstractly yet. They can't focus on two parts of a problem. So we can design curriculum that sets them up for success. It allows us to design curriculum and goals that are measurable for this age group. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something like I did. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the response, and I will get back to you. Have a great